So it is 12:30 Central Time, and because we only have 20 minutes, I'm going to dive right in. So those of you who don't know me, I'm Jim Ware with the Focus Consulting Group. I put my hand up real high to do this topic because I do a lot of coaching, and yeah, it's like the movie Pick Me, Pick Me. I really think that 360s are an underutilized tool. Broad statement, everyone at a firm should do a 360. Why? Because you want to find out how you're doing as a professional in that organization. So let's take a look real quickly at why I think that and why you may be interested in doing one. So I call this, Can You Handle the Truth, which is part of, A Few Good Men. Part of the reason why people don't do 360s, but another title could have been the myths around 360s. For example, people think, well, I get a lot of feedback. I'm a leader, but I get a lot of feedback, so I'm fine. I don't really need a 360. Well, you can see the problems there. First of all, getting a lot of feedback from people who are direct reports to you, and they're not going to give you candid feedback. I mean, maybe one or two are, but by and large, they're not going to give you the really valuable stuff. So if you want an accurate assessment of how you're doing from bosses, peers, and directs, you need a 360. And it'll reveal blind spots, which I'm going to show you in a minute, some of the data on that. But blind spots are huge. We all have them by definition. We like to play around with people and say, what are your blind spots? And if they start to speak up, they say, no, that's not a blind spot if you're knowledgeable about it. 360s provide options for development. So part of our debrief is always, our write-up and debrief in the 360 is, here's the areas where it really would benefit you to take a good look at and develop what we call deliberate practice. So the point of deliberate practice is, let's say you want to get better at tennis. If you just go out and play with the same group every Saturday morning, and I know this from experience, you're not going to get any better. The guys I've played with for years are all at the same level they were 3, 4, 5 years ago. So playing a lot doesn't help. What helps is to start to take lessons from a pro who's going to work on your serve, your forehand, your backhand, your drop shot, hitting top spin, where you should be standing in the court, all those sorts of things. That requires deliberate practice. You are deliberately trying to get better. You're not just going out and playing. So how does that apply to being a professional? If you just show up every day and do your job, say you're a research analyst and you're just looking at the data on the companies you follow, that's great. But you want to pick something you can get better and better at. Maybe you're not a good team player. Maybe people don't really give you the information they have and stuff because you're kind of prickly and they don't want to be around you. You won't know that unless you get a 360 and a development plan around that. Could be a blind spot for you. The key to number 4, the key to really good 360s is anonymity. So when we do 360s, we have an upfront video conference where we tell everyone who's participating, this is totally anonymous. We could not tell the person in question who said what if they offered us $1 million. We couldn't do it because we purposely set it up that we don't know who said what, because we're interested in what's said, not who said what. So anonymity allows you to get really good, candid, accurate feedback. We think this should happen every couple of years because dynamics change, your team members change, your role might change. Maybe you're in a different part of the organization or whatever. So 2 years is a good time frame. Now, everything is the same 2 years later. You might want to put it off for a while, but that's not the case in this day and age that we live in, is most of the time it's shifting. So you need new data to look at. And then 6, of course, this is you can't handle the truth. Most people don't do it because of fear. Now they say things, they have excuses like, well, I did one at my last company, so I know what the deal is. No, you don't know what the deal is with the people around you now. Maybe they're different from the people. We do a lot of work with personality typing. Maybe they're different personalities. They don't see your harshness as being okay. It scares them and they shut down and they're not candid with you. Whereas the last organization, that's the way they operated. So you could be throwing F-bombs around and nobody cared and they all were very candid with you. Great. You'll get a certain data set from that crowd of people. You get a very different one if you change organizations. So saying, oh, I took it the last organization doesn't work. Of course, it doesn't work to say, oh, I get feedback from people all the time. You know, every day I'm getting feedback, because that's usually good behavior feedback. They don't want to come in and really tell you what they might in an anonymous survey, right? So fear is a big factor. Another rationalization, I'm just too busy. You know, I basically know what's going on. I'm just too busy. You could probably have a couple pages worth of excuses, but if you cut to the chase, it's people are fearful of getting that information. And it's a shame, because if you ask folks, and we have, would you rather know how you're perceived and know how you're doing, or be in the dark? And people invariably say, oh, I'd rather know. I don't want to be in the dark. I want to know. And then they don't sign up for 360s. So you see the gap there, the disconnect there, right? So let's talk a little bit more about what you might actually learn in a 360 that would be so helpful. So here's what I call blind spots overconfident. So again, this is sort of the bird's eye view of the result of a 360. And we go from like 50,000 feet, which is this, the circumplex, down to 40,000, which takes it, we do 3 different areas of your leadership, your performance. We do leads the self. So that's about yourself. We do leads the team. That's how you function with the team that you're part of. And you could be leader or participant in that team. And we do leads the firm. So that part could be a little more sparse if you're, you know, a research analyst or something. You're not really leading the firm, but we do a whole lot of 360s for firm leaders, people who are kind of sitting around the senior table. So they need to be leading the firm. So you see these on the left: leads the self, leads the team, leads the firm. And the way we design it is the individual and his organization pick which of these competencies that you see listed are the ones that are relevant to their role. So in this case, the person who was being 360'd here on the left said that, you know, what's important in my organization is that I'm candid, that I'm action oriented, obviously that I have integrity and I'm trusted by people, that I'm a good listener, etc. Right? So these are all the factors that they're measured on, customized, right? So then you see this bird's eye view, which is these 3 areas: self, team, firm, and the pie shapes within this circular pie are how they were rated by bosses, peers, and directs, and sometimes a category called other. If you're a CEO, you may want the board to be considered the other. So that's a whole different set of raters for you. So these pie shapes are how you're doing on a 5-point scale, 5 being they do it all the time. Candor, they do it well, they do it all the time. 1 being I hardly ever see any candor from this people, like 0, right? 1 to 5. And you see the circular, sort of like a tree, the rings of the tree are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The outermost is a 5. So the closer you get to being a full piece of pie is a really good score. So what do we notice here in these 2? We notice a whole lot of overconfidence. These people don't really know how they're being perceived. And importantly, they don't know that they're being perceived a lot lower than they think. So this is a huge, huge bit of information for a leader. For example, one leader we worked with thought that he was very well liked by his team, that, you know, he was a good guy, they thought he was wonderful, they could relate to him. And it turns out part of his behavior was sarcasm. and he thought he was very funny. Well, it turned off the team. They thought he at times was denigrating, dismissive. I don't know if I'd go so far as to say cruel, but off-putting, because sarcasm at someone's expense is not a pleasant thing, particularly in front of other people. So he rated himself high on things like builds effective collaboration, develops others, helps to develop the team, those sorts of scores, interpersonal scores. And he was way lower than he thought, because he didn't get it, that his sarcasm was really not helping him. So we coached him and got him to a place where he saw that, and he was very motivated. That's a key factor in any 360 and follow-up. Do you really care? Do you care how you're perceived? Do you get it that that's important to your performance? If you, it's the Dr. Phil question, how is that working for you? If you don't care and you say, I don't care if people really like me or not, maybe that's not important in a few jobs, but most jobs, that's hugely important, that you have rapport, people trust you, they want to work with you. I was coaching a fellow not too long ago who had the same issue where he thought he was doing fine with his staff, right? But the truth was that his staff was afraid of him. He would get very impatient. And when he got impatient, he got a little snippy, and he would start to criticize and say things like, why can't you get your work done right? Or this is not even close to what I wanted. Those sorts of things. Well, that shuts people down. I mean, they're in a subordinate position and their superior, their boss is telling them they're not doing it right. They're not doing it well. The result was people didn't want to go to him with problems, with issues. They didn't want to spend any time with them. So again, on the blind spot analysis, he thought he was doing okay. But because he was committed, and that's the point I'm trying to make, he was committed to getting better. He was committed to having a legacy of people saying, I liked working for this guy. It was really a good experience. Whereas if he had left the next day, there would have been a widespread view of that was a pain in the backside. I'm glad I'm not working for that guy anymore. And he was a good guy. He was a very a decent person, and he didn't want that. So he really changed. In 6 months, they did another little sort of mini 360, and he had raised his score by a significant amount, to the point where a couple of his people wanted him to be their mentor, whereas before they were avoiding him. So he needed to see that blind spot analysis. And all of us have those blind spots. So we can't get away with saying, oh, I'm fine, I know everything that's going on. Now, what's the other extreme on this? The other extreme is what I would call the situation where you are underconfident. It's the exact opposite. If you notice here on these 360 results for the competencies on the left, there's so many black, I should have said the black lines are the self-scoring lines. So just to go back, I missed that point. Go back, you see the black lines, those are self-scoring. And on this, the self-scores were so far ahead of the pie pieces, so that those were overconfident. Sorry, I missed that earlier. Now we go to the opposite phenomenon where almost every black mark, self-scoring, how do they think they're doing on this competency, is inside of the pie pieces. Now, remember, the point of scoring yourself is not to be looking modest. It's not to be saying, oh, I'm such a humble, modest person. That's not the point. The point is accuracy. Do you see yourself the way others see you? And we, again, up front, we coach people on this, and we tell them, when you fill it out, when you're the one being evaluated and you fill it out, don't try to appear humble, try to appear accurate. So we really try to set the context for a very, very informative 360. And so you see here on some of these scores, let's take L4, for example, listens actively. So this person says, nah, I'm not really listening. The person on the left, not really listening very well. but their team and the people around them say, that's a really good thing for you. You're like over 4 on a 5-point scale for listening. So we coach people on being curious. So again, when you get your 360, instead of getting defensive around it and trying to rationalize and explain and justify and defend against all the information you're getting, we encourage people to be open and curious, which looks like, gee, what am I doing really well on as far as listening? I gave myself a lower score. And that can be really useful. People say, well, you don't fidget, you don't look at your device, you don't look at your watch, you don't drum your fingers, you make eye contact, you ask good questions. And that's a good reinforcement for the leader to say, oh, well, I'll keep doing that then. It's also good for the person you're curious with and asking them to remind them of that's why they say you're a good listener. They can ask themselves in a curious fashion, am I doing that? So there's all kinds of learnings that come out of these 360s. So you can see here, this is a great example of people who are not seeing themselves accurately, and they really have been coached on don't just be humble. So presumably they knew they were supposed to rate themselves accurately. Now, we do a lot of work with personality descriptions, and it's right in the 360. Jamie is on with us in this little hit it and quit it, and Jamie is our personality expert. And she has a personality, by the way. So if you don't, we will assign you one. But she has a personality that loves personalities. So she really knows our tool, the Enneagram, super well. And she helps us to identify where a person is on this spectrum of personality. So typically, there's a personality called the perfectionist. And you can imagine they really are high standards. They're tough on themselves and need to get everything just right. These two people, I don't know for a fact, but these two people may well be perfectionists because their standards are so high. So they don't think they're living up to all these competencies. That's a useful insight from the 360, because if indeed their 360 has their own profile in it. So if one of these people is a perfectionist and they get their results and they see that they have really been tough on themselves, that's a good place to explore with them when you get development plans in place. So 360s should end, and this is how ours end, with a development plan. And typically that's 3 things, right? We don't want to give them 15 things to think about. You look at the 3 major areas and you have a dialogue back and forth about which of those areas, which of the data pieces that they get would make those 3 areas. What are the 3 areas you can really benefit from? Often it's blind spots, like the sarcastic fellow who really needed to rein that in, be more respectful, and not be off-putting towards his team members. So that's a big one. So they walk away from the 360 with much clearer view of how they're being perceived and a plan for developing. So again, tell yourself you can handle the truth and get a 360. It's the most valuable thing you're going to do as far as your personal development. There are other things you're going to want to do as well to be successful, like pick the right investments, but you're going to want to get this information. So I hope this has been useful to you. For yourself, for the people around you, I would encourage them to do these 360s. We offer a great one, so that's shameless advertising, but other folks do it too. So you can go to another vendor, as it were, but get a 360 done. And make sure it's outside so that it's anonymous. You don't want to do a bogus 360 where you do it internally and everybody kind of turns it into you. So it's not anonymous at all. That doesn't work. Okay, as I say, I hope you're having a good Friday. I hope you're looking forward to a great weekend. We love these little hit it and quit it's because they're short and sweet and hopefully full of information for you. Laura on our team, who is a perfectionist, so everything is right when she does it, will be happy to field questions or inquiries, give you a recording of this if you wish. On Friday in September, we're going to see a Keith Robinson presentation on managing performance. He's an expert at that. So I really encourage you to tune in for that. You'll learn a ton. And we have tons of clients who have picked us up in that area and want to know how to manage performance. Obviously, that's key. Join our distribution list. Again, Laura will send you all kinds of stuff. We believe in abundance and theory. So we are happy to give you stuff free. Because we get lots of great stuff free. Lots of our clients send us all kinds of wonderful stuff. So we're very happy to reciprocate and make it free for all you. So hope you enjoyed this. Really enjoyed being with you for this time period, and look forward to the next time our paths cross. Bye for now.